Everyone, my name is Ivan Puzarev. I am an AR and VR digital strategist. Thank you for watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and Vkontakte. The language of our event is English, but if you're looking for Russian translation, please find Strelka Russian channel on Facebook or Vkontakte. Our session will take about 1 hour, and after this we'll have a Q&A session, so please feel free to post your question on any platform. Let's dive right in. And now welcome to our VR stage or VR room. And again, thank you for watching us on YouTube and Facebook and Vkontakte. And just to clarify what's going on right here, we are standing in virtual reality space. I am in Moscow, Anton is Ekaterinburg, and Thomas in London. And we are just wearing a VR glasses, standing in our room and walking, using our hands and just being there. So this is our room for today. This is our kind of board to discuss. And now let's maybe move to our guests. I'm happy to introduce Anton Rozhin. He's a creative director of Vashod Agency, one of the most awarded advertising agency in Russia, with lots of nominees and prizes from international competitions. And thank you for joining us. And the second guest today is Thomas Grogan. It's a French-British artist and researcher with a background in industrial and speculative design. His work has been shown in international and venues such as Park Liverpool, Balkan Laboratories, and New Museum. And me and Thomas were studying together in Strelka Institute. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us today.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you. Let's shake our hands, our virtual hands.
Yeah, okay, let's try.
Let's try to do that.
Yeah, a little bit, your hand looks like it was burned a little bit.
Yeah, like as if I'm using heroin for 30 years already.
Okay. Okay, it's maybe you find it really strange, but the first thing I want to do to like invite you to do all together is to bring a pen from your menu and maybe draw a small sculpture all together, because all three of us have a different color. So and we can draw something huge, but all together. And if our lines were touched each other, it will have a feeling of one big sculpture. Do you want to try?
Right. Sure.
And the point of this is maybe to draw something like what's the virtual reality for you, maybe like this. So Thomas already started, so maybe we can join him.
Yeah, well, okay, I was going to start here, so then we can join in the middle or something. I guess it's going to be hard not to do something as a bit like a pyramidal, or more like an exquisite cupped, maybe we can do a bit. So I do the bottom, you do the top.
Yes.
I
have a green one.
What it is? Yes, we're gradient from blue to green. Are you kneeling on the floor, Ivan, to be that low?
Yeah, actually, I'm in Strelka right now.
Oh, right. I'm in my studio in London.
Anton, where are you?
What's funny, you're all...
Hey, Anton, you are muted. Be careful. You need to unmute yourself.
How do you mute yourself, Ivan?
Okay, and now it's okay?
Yeah. Now I can hear you. You can mute yourself just going in the settings. It's just next to a pen button.
Oh, I see.
No, yeah, I see. I think I know what is virtual reality for me. The symbol of it. If you don't mind, guys, I will just make this stuff.
Okay.
Let it be kind of my part.
Oh, this is beautiful. I think
this is
now. I think this is enough.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thanks for
Looks
watching.
like small pieces.
So now it's it's almost a one big sculpture. So we are doing good because we have only 2 parts. Let's maybe scale it and put it somewhere in the background.
Yeah. Beautiful.
How is my curly hair look in VR?
We can put it above your head.
Yeah. You're a bush.
This is beautiful.
You're a Vanya Bush Junior.
This is fantastic.
Okay. Just to clarify why we are doing this and what is actually going on, I just want to go to closer for a second to a camera just to explain what's the point of this meeting actually. So the thing is that we all can see lots of hype around virtual reality is like a big promises. For example, I saw lots of news like this. Like you see, like why virtual reality is about to change the world or stuff like this. I think it's kind of overhyped, and the reason why we met today is just to bring some realistic feeling of what the virtual reality is, and to discuss the real feeling of virtual reality. I decided to bring together like a specialist who are using virtual reality not as a main tool for development, but more about consumer way, let's say in a more regular way, on a regular basis for maybe research as a Thomas, or for gamers or social aspect as Anton. So again, I just want to underline the only way to speak about VR is to be actually in VR and to speak with the people who is doing who's doing it as a regular person, on a regular base. And but by saying this, I want to just move to a kind of a first question. So what does a virtual means for you? Yeah, if you want, I can open up a little bit, or we can go directly if you have an answer.
Sure. Do you want to start?
Could you start with this? Because
sure.
I would continue.
Sure. I guess for me, I mean, virtual in the context of virtual reality is for me just another terminology to define a reality for which we kind of building a different or new sensory body via headsets or screens, or it could even be sound like speakers. And this is for us to be kind of more immersed in that reality or sensitive towards that reality. And in comparison to what some other will define as physical reality, in comparison to the virtual reality, we've got already a really sensitive sensory body. So that make us more immersed. And I guess for me, virtual is just a parallel world that has kind of a feedback loop with the virtual world and the physical world that communicate one another. And I think that's what interests me in my research, is to understand the connections and the similarities, but also differences, and how we can play on both expectations of one entering the virtual, living in the physical, and vice versa, exiting the virtual and going to the physical as well.
Okay. Wow. So what how many, like, are you including in this perceptions of all kind of sensor the human body had?
Yes, exactly. I mean, you know, for instance, like, we're lacking so much information when we're in virtual reality, but somehow they're compensated by other means. So far, like, you know, as you've demonstrated in so many in your talks, like, there's a lack of smell or like touch and many aspects of our physical world which are actually compensated by either animation or sound or the way or gameplay. And I guess it's just a matter of time until we kind of reach that point of complete similarities. And I guess it will never be exactly the same, I disagree with that. Like it's impossible that it would be exactly the same as this physical reality, but it will create another reality for sure.
Wow.
Another sensory body.
Yeah, I heard that you mentioned the smell, and I just bring one really great example. This image is just showing the kind of a map of a smell for a 3D environment. So this is kind of a drawing how you start feeling a smell step by step, going closer to a specific object. So this kind of like a special map for a smell inside a virtual reality. And if we kind of think that the perception is a visual plus tactile plus audio, and the smell is a kind of the last one, right? One of the last. And I just see more and more projects opening up. Things like this. Let's bring it back. Wow. Yeah. I really expect something really different from you, Anton. Really different perception of what's the virtual reality for you. What do you think?
Yeah, okay, let's start with this one. Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci. Yeah, that is the guy.
Actually, even the moment that Anton just like connect his hand and make a search, it's amazing.
Yeah, for me, virtual reality is how to explain it. I would explain it in 2 examples and then make the conclusion. Virtual reality for me, as a gamer from my childhood, as a guy who enjoys spending time in different worlds and in games, and also now in VR. I would say that virtual reality is something where Joe Pesci can finally speak like this and become Gerald Pesci. Or it is the place where the politician can, as you said, smell and lick the toes of their favorite anime characters, pretending they are dogs or something. It is just an alternate life you can live through. And the main points are the 2 things. The first one is the experience you get, the things that you cannot do in real life, like licking anime characters' body parts, or and the second one is the point that it is the most personal way. This virtual reality, this VR headsets, and the place we are in now. This is the most personal way I know from now, which gives you this experience. So at these 2 points, I've got some conclusions and some ideas which I wanted to discuss with you guys, but maybe later. So it's personal, and it is experience. So Joe Pesci, bye-bye. Thank you for your words.
By saying personal, I just kind of, Thomas, did you saw this image? It's a kind of a one guy, but it's all his digital twins from all different social networks. For example, this one is from Spatial. This like iOS, this is Facebook, Snapchat, and maybe some Chinese stuff. So it's like the different platforms. So all this is the same person. It's kind of in the same time we have a one identity, but like, for example, Anton here is a Agnified, and you Tom Grok, so it's kind of even a different nickname.
Yeah, but I guess that's quite expected if you look at the kind of aesthetic of the pluri identities, right? But then you can imagine easily then people are just like really using that as an opportunity to kind of like completely recreate the physiognomy. And that's one way of viewing it, is like you create different identities that can actually be also aesthetic, but also like in a character of the being. So I imagine that myself on Messenger is possibly like nicer to myself in real life. I don't know. So then you have also different types of ways to interact with people based on the platform as well, which I think is really interesting because there is an architecture in these platforms that kind of like pushes you to become somebody else than yourself because of the technology that's been put in place. You know, like you don't speak like you tweet, I would say.
Yeah.
For instance.
Yeah. It's kind of they pushing you to be someone else. Yeah, I know what you mean. What was the craziest experience you get in VR, and how it was? What it was exactly?
The second day I bought this headset, I met with my friends to share the experience of how great it is. And the first, just in about 1 hour, the girl ran into the wall, and now my headset has scars like it came from the battle. But still,
what's she playing? What she's playing?
She was playing Super Hot.
Super Hot, of course. Thomas, did you play Super Hot?
Hot. No, what is it?
Hot. Super hot.
Sorry, guys. I just I bring you your glass.
Yeah, cool. Nice.
No, I just I was too late, but I just decided to that you can exemplify your thing about what's happening in airplane.
Yeah, so it was just like that.
Oh, do you have another VR glasses?
No.
Okay, Thomas, steal it.
Oh no. Oh wait, you mean the virtual one?
Yeah,
the
still stolen.
Yeah.
We know English.
Yeah.
It's here, but we can't grab it. For some reason, no? Anyways.
Okay, Thomas, your turn.
Oh yeah, about a crazy story with VR. I mean,
if you have one, but not necessary.
Not a funny one, but the most amazing one, I think, for me was kind of like one of the first times I've actually used VR, which is still like, I think for me the most memorable moment. And it was, I remember it was like in like 5 years ago. We went on a field trip with my class when I was doing my MA at the Royal College of Art. We went to visit the UCLA School of Films and Television, and they shared with us kind of experiments, and they were working on this video game that was well, I remember it was like a kind of like living room that you could move around, and then you had like tentacles instead of like your arms. So if you look at yourself, you feel like it was quite nice, but it was also like, you've got to remember it was the first time I used it. But what I really liked about it is that everything looked really similar to reality, and they were testing some kind of like object tracking behavior. They've put like some sensors and some objects in reality that you could grab in virtual reality. And you really felt like you were in some form of like parallel reality. But at some point, they've enabled the flying mode. So you were able, like after playing the game for a couple of minutes and walking around in the living room, you were able to fly. And what I really liked about that, it was kind of how believable the environment and my experience in that environment was, to an extent that made me really believe in the fact that I was flying. And I thought that was quite amazing. Whereas like in comparison, if they would have like invited me to play a video game where I would be flying from the beginning, then I don't think it would have been like so believable. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you agree that the social part of virtual reality will be one of the most important, or you think that like the single games or education process or any other stuff in virtual reality will be most important? The social, I mean, the VR chat or rec room.
You mean okay? I would separate this question into two parts. The first one, I think the beginning of the category of VR have to start in entertainment, like computer was. and then it would bring us, when everybody would have those VR sets and the easy access to the VR, it would then we could speak about making things like Rec Room and Engage and Alt Space, something bigger, something more popular, something like VR Facebook.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like there's a reason why Facebook invested into Oculus, because they do see this dimension of this social dimension to VR.
And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, in case that we are all wearing an Oculus Quest right now, and in case that
it's funny because when I read that, I can't help myself like imagining that the VR data is not only the things that you consume, but it could also be the biomechanics of yourself. So the way you move in space. So I can imagine like the data is way more than the normal data that Facebook will have. But then this is what is a bit frightening. It's almost like could the VR data like gives you ads about how do you call them, posture stretcher, because they see like you're always kind of like, walking like this in a VR game. And then they're just like, they're able to anticipate because of your movement and no longer your consumption patterns, which I find really interesting. That's super cool.
Yeah. But it's like, it's the same time, like, I agree, Thomas, that it's a bit scared. I mean, they just want to implement the same commercial model they have, like in all other parts of their like huge platform. They want to implement it in virtual reality just directly. So another question I have for you guys, it's how do you think the virtual reality will impact the industry you are in? I mean, it sounds a bit like a huge question, I know. Huge question, I know, but maybe try to open up why, for example, you, Thomas, kind of decide to go inside and experimenting in virtual reality. I think I saw all of your projects with virtual reality, and it's really interesting for me. And from perspective of like artist and researcher, what do you think? How do you think it will change the whole scene of artists and researchers?
Yeah, well, I mean, because I've got a practice which is relying a lot on like ethnographic research. It's like gathering insights of from various specialists, from farmers to programmers or journalists. I tend to use that information to then create some kind of like speculative fictions on how technology will impact their profession. And as you mentioned, my last project was looking at how VR will impact the wine industry. So there are two aspects in my industry, which is like using VR as a kind of like medium for artistic purposes, or the other one, which is like as a subject. And I think I've only been using VR for the last 2 years. And I think for me it was kind of the right moment to use it as a medium, because I think I was ready, or I guess the audience, or the artistic audience or world or sphere, was kind of ready for it as a tool for storytelling more than a kind of like gimmick or gadget. Now it's the challenge is to get people to appreciate it for how you use it instead of what it is. And I mean, my practice kind of like materialized itself mostly through exhibition or talks. And I think for me, the challenge in using VR in an exhibition is to work through the workflow of an exhibition and how the audience interact with a VR headset. And I think sometimes it's really tricky, because people have to get briefed before using it if they have never used one before. And I think this is, or like know how to use remote controllers. And I think at the moment I'm working on using with a programmer on hand gestures, because I think it gets rid of that other layer of complexity. So these are kind of like, or also like the manual of how to play the video game. So I'm working on like ways of integrating the manual of the gameplay into an installation, or trying to find loopholes into getting an audience to interact in a more smooth way with the headset or the video game.
Anton, what do you think?
Yeah,
how it will?
I totally agree with Thomas and you about the main problems which VR category faces. We cannot make advertising in VR just because advertising is something for masses, for people. The only usage of VR in advertising is only when you directly send the headset with the content for the exact one person to watch it. There is such advertising, but still it is not what marketing field needs. What it needs, how to build the how could VR make the great impact on our industry? There is just one answer. The VR has to be popular among people. And today I was just walking around and thinking about how to make it popular and referencing to the experiences of companies which face the same question. And from now, I have a strong opinion which I want to discuss with you, because I think it would really push the VR category into the market. The thing is that it has to be aggressively advertised. As a person who lives in this in media context of different advertising and stuff, I cannot remember any advertising of it. Just any. We just don't face it. Yes, people know that there are headsets, there is VR and etc. But still, they just it is something from use for them. It is not something from market. For example, I brought two examples for today, just to show how the same players of the market did it. And you know both. The first is Apple. The second is PlayStation. It is both were the bystander of the market. Both were bystanders of the market, and then they just entered. I think the thing is that VR industry has to just push itself towards people, just to make people buy it. As I remember, I think Ivan also remembers it, in 90s when the criminals were around in Russia, when it was the weak economic. For some reason, I don't know why, people were buying stereo systems. They didn't even know what is decibels, but everyone had the perfect stereo system in their house. Why for? Just for what reason? But still, they bought it because it was cool. I think the thing is that we need to make VR cool and popular with the tools of advertising and the tools of marketing. Let's think of one. Yeah. Let's just remember one great thing. Apple and PlayStation were bystanders. They were out of normality, and both of it made the marketing message about it in their advertising. Let's take a look,
very
please.
Right?
Yeah.
Which one you want to play?
I think let's start with this one.
Sorry.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the
So you're kind of imagining kind of something similar, but for VR, right?
Yeah, exactly. We look like strangers now. All of us who are in this virtual room in real life, we look like strange guys in these huge headsets with this shitty quality in our, which we see with the shitty sound, with the shitty connection. But when the market brings the demand, it makes supply at the same time. Just make people demand this, and people who develop this will put much more efforts because there will be money, there will be interest.
What's interesting about your question, Ivan, is that how would it change your industry? And then I think you're answering like how could your industry change it as well. But then how do you think like VR innovate in advertising like this? Like as this, like, you know, using this kind of, I guess what I was pointing out earlier is like could you use the VR data to do better marketing or advertising based on the data that you collect in VR, right? It's like how VR can improve marketing as well. I think that's quite interesting. Are you considering already doing like some, you know, I guess like 360 ads for VR as well? Or like how do we actually experience any form of advertisement in VR when we use the Oculus? I don't think so, right?
I can explain you. Our aim, our goal is to make the effective and good advertising. Of course, there are a bunch of advertising made in 360 and etc., but it is just not effective because people don't watch it, because people don't have tools to watch it. In that case,
for sure, I understand. Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, sorry? I say I understand. Sorry.
Yeah. So in that case, I mean, we are ready to use it. We want to use it. We would dig deeper and deeper to find the opportunities of how to use it. But the thing is that we cannot use it for mass market because it doesn't exist yet. What we can do events where we can give these headsets to people, or we can use direct marketing. For example, you're sitting at your home and someone brings you this headset, you wear it and you see this advertising, but people just don't face it in normal life in Russia, and that is the problem. That's why we don't do it. And in the ladder of logic, I tried to climb upper to think, but how to make it happen that a lot of people have this, and I think it is possible. Yeah. It is not that expensive. It is free. You don't have to use anything. You don't have to buy a huge computer to use headsets. It is the great start for the field, and if I were the Oculus brand manager, I would just make the huge kick for the brand into this field, because I think the more people use it, the better it gets.
Yeah, just to add some numbers, you know, it's like the most like one of the most sales, the biggest sales in VR gets from PlayStation VR, and they get only about like 2-3 million headsets. So it's still really niche. Thomas, I have a question for you. Are you working currently on some projects and for virtual reality? Can you say a few words about it?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as I was mentioning earlier about the, it's okay.
Yeah.
About the possibility of using VR in the art world or for exhibitions, I'm currently looking at making an installation using VR, and I've been researching a lot on what is called kind of horticultural or ecotherapy, which consists of a series of treatments to for people's well-being by outdoors activities. And I've been looking at ways of adapting some aspect of these treatments to VR and to what benefit. I'm aware of like the limitations of VR in a sense that we're lacking a lot of information, and it's kind of like almost paradoxical to put a VR headset to kind of like reconnect with the outside world. But I was kind of interested in this kind of like paradox. And so I've been looking in one exercise within this therapy treatments, which is called the balancing stone therapy. And
I know it.
Of and it consists of like inviting people to go and have a walk in the forest or outside and collect several stones with them. And the principle is that you have to assign to each of these stones a problem that you have in your life. And the exercise consists of, once you've collected all the stones, to find balance between between each of them, and create a cairn, create a stack of rocks. So this is what we have here. And I've been kind of looking in ways that this exercise, by balancing all these stones, you supposedly solve each of the problems that are assigned to them. And I've been looking at ways of actually adapting this exercise to virtual reality and see if the therapeutic purposes or properties will still be active. So I've been starting my research by looking at ways of like digitizing some elements of the real world to bring to the virtual world, or how to kind of like use information from the real world to kind of like create and map an environment, an existing environment. This is the terrain. And from scanning, these are scans that I've made using a digital microscope, taking some kind of rocks from my granddad's quarry. You're able to kind of recreate, to some extent, a form of reality. But I think it is important to acknowledge the fact that reality will never be as real as the physical reality. So this virtual world needs to play within this capacity of playing with physics and scales, and forces. So for instance, this is floating, and how could I make use of these new kind of like environmental properties for the benefit of creating a new ritual, a new therapy. So at the moment, these are just like work in progress. This is an image of the work in progress of the hand gesture, the video game that I'm creating. And I think, to bring it back to the exhibition context, I'm quite interested in using this as a kind of social experiment, a bit like a exquisite corpse. I'm developing this video game as a game that one after another users will be interacting with, and one user will start the game where the person before them would have left it. At this moment, this video game is it's being made, and I'm thinking about the flow, as I said earlier, about how people would be able to be briefed about the gameplay and how to interact with these rocks and what to do. So these are kind of like sculptures that are made are visible inside the virtual environment of the video game, with some kind of elements of how to play the game. And similar sculptures will also be placed in the physical world to enable them to play and get a sense of how to play the video game.
That's cool. I like it.
And I think also something that interests me is in this video game, as I said, it's a social experiment. So people will be able to create cairns, but then at an infinite level. So because we don't have physics and gravity, what I'm kind of aiming for is that you'll be able to slide in stones in between two stones, which potentially will create immense piles of stones. And in the gameplay, there'll be the possibility that the kern will transform into a bigger rock if it hasn't been touched. So then you can actually scrap it down into smaller rocks and therefore move bigger rocks by collecting stone and moving them somewhere else and recreating a big rock to some extent. So the social experiment kind of appears when a lot of people have played over a long period of time, and then you see on the map how the environment is being shaped by quantity of plays, of games being played.
And what about the usability of VR? You mentioned before that one of the key points for you is to make it accessible for anyone. So you don't need extra instructions or controllers or anything. Yeah. So literally anyone can start wearing VR and start experiencing your project. Am I right?
Yes, that's the aim. Why there are kind of like clues on how to play the video game, so then you don't need someone to brief you before going there, or the use of like hand gesture instead of remote controls is kind of what I'm working for towards. And also, you know, it's just a small detail, but one example in the physical world is that when you put an Oculus Quest, you don't have a headset with it. So it's like, how do I create mods of the headset that enables people to instantly have headphones with the headset, so they can actually listen to? Because, you know, in some time you have to put the headset and put some headphones on and then hold the controllers, and this becomes really bulky and then awkward to do if you've never used a headset. So it's like, how do you streamline the process?
Wow. And when are you planning to finish the project?
It's hopefully there'll be like a first prototype of the game within the next at the end of this month, and then the exhibition is scheduled for September, but I think because of the pandemic it will be postponed to January.
Okay. Did you think about the way to distribute your project, or it's kind of focused on an exhibition only?
I mean, for now, it's just it only works. It's only been thought as an exhibition. Yes, it's an exhibition piece.
I see.
Because you can't detach the experiment aspect of it. Then I don't think it's been designed for to be used on Steam, for example. I think it needs that kind of experience of going from the physical to the digital, and I think this is what interests me as much as the gameplay within the virtual.
Yeah, I see. I see. Wow. Yeah, I think it's kind of a current position of VR for me in general. So it's not ready yet for be at every home. It's not ready yet for be like a game changer. And as for example, the Anton said before, it's kind of it needs to grow, but to grow it needs to be cool for like general consumers. And what I see for now is like a.
It just needs several $1 million from Facebook for VR to start being the thing which we are speaking about. Because people would put much more effort in developing it and to make it easier, to make it more flat, to make it less heavy, to use the potential of hand tracking and etc.
Okay. Wow. Guys, is it okay for you if we'll like wrap it up a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Just yeah?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. For me, from the beginning, it was like a pure experiment, and the main goal is to underline how like what's the basic position of VR? So the fact that we have some problems with connection sometimes, how many people we need to make it possible, how many time you need to spend to make it work. Just again underline what's the general thing. Just VR is not maybe ready yet, but it's an amazing tool when you just starting experiencing, and then don't worry to try. Because it's not that expensive right now. Everyone can entering the virtual reality experience really easily, and most of our audience right now maybe don't have a VR glasses. But the point of this conversation was to show you that you can even start playing games or start doing your small research project or socializing in VR just by having basic VR glass. Let me go closer a bit to a camera, and maybe like this. Everyone who's watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or Contactive, thank you so much for spending this about 1 hour with us. And please feel free to post any questions. We'll try to answer in a session which goes after this VR meeting. And you can find more content and maybe another lecture if we'll have one in VR on Strelka channel on Facebook or Contacti or on YouTube. And stay tuned and join the VR community.
You could tell Anton just something fell and then you
it was my Icos felt. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, audience. It is cool. Join us. It is fantastic. You're missing a lot in your real life. Come to virtual life. Here is.
Wow. Welcome back to reality. So we get we get a lot of questions. Let me start with a simple one. It was what platform were you using? A platform called Spatial. It's free to use. So basically, all of us just use a really basic VR glasses, and everyone who had glasses feel free to try this. You just need to register, enter your email, and you're up to use it. So let me check another one. I saw a question about the biomechanics and the usage of VR in general. And on one of the conference I visited, most of the awards went to usage of VR in medicine and kind of research of perception of a user, of the body of the user, and the possibilities of self-perception and changing of self-perception. And so this is a kind of a really bold topic and really kind of hidden inside this huge iceberg of VR, because it's kind of, when you see the only games only on top, there are lots of things going like somewhere hidden. And another question I just maybe want to forward to Anton. So could you please reflect on the benefits of VR in the era of self-isolation, and when people can meet in person, how useful is a meeting format like one you just had? After all, it seems that it's just easier and more familiar for people to see each other faces in Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, of course, the time has changed and the whole world communication has changed. Everybody moved to Zoom and they're speaking there. But since I'm using the VR, I can say exactly one simple thing. The communication between two people can be based on just the pure communication when you share information with each other.
you are here, I'm there, and we are sharing this. We're sharing views, sharing something from our lives, and what is the difference between why VR brings something new? Because it's very often the communication of two people is about not only the information, but about the subjects which we have in common. Like, I mean, for example, this is Tabasco, which I have on my table, and I can eat it, I can use it, but you can't. You don't have the Tabasco, and even if you had, you would have another portion of Tabasco. Via the experience of VR, of meeting in these rooms, I could say that beer, for example, drinking beer, is not about drinking beer, but it is about the ceremony. You can bring the ceremony of drinking beer to VR without drinking it, and still it will be the half of satisfaction of this beer. When you hold this bottle, when you give this bottle to someone, the subject, the bottle is the subject. The environment is the subject. What you see under your feet, what you see around you is the subject. This virtual reality makes much more than can make much more than just Zoom conversation, because you are kind of together in some kind of world. Despite it is virtual, still it is half of something, like a half of reality, kind of.
I see. I can add a few words. I think one of the most popular way to explain what's the benefits of meeting in VR compared to Zoom, for example, if we imagine a meeting of two architects and they just bring an object in VR, so they can literally point, like, what do you think about this part, about that part? And this possibility of like observing all together and scaling and drawing in space is just, it's impossible to access in a Zoom meeting, for example. Thomas, I have a question for you. Do you want to add something to this one, or because I have directly looks like a question for you?
Yeah, sure. Move to the next question, maybe.
Okay, cool. So how can VR be useful in the context of social projects? As, for example, Thomas said about therapy, how else can VR be used to help people? Right. It's kind of a really big question, so I can help you. Do you feel okay to speak about this?
Yeah, I think I'm going to use one example that I talked about, which was in the wine industry, and I think it's quite a good one. It's about VR has this capacity of bridging spaces, right? And I've been looking into the ways that people are reinventing the wine tasting ritual, and I've been seeing that in some few wine shops in New York, they're actually giving people a VR headset with some kind of like footage of the landscape from which the grapes and the wine is coming from. And I think that's a really powerful tool, which kind of gives value to the landscape in itself and the region and the terroir of that region. And so it has definitely commercial purposes, but also quality purposes, and because it helps you tracking in some ways how, or the veracity of the product that you're actually buying. But I guess this could be done with any kind of form of remote sensing technologies, but the VR in comparison to a 2D screen is way more immersive. So this is one example. I'm sure you have so many others, Ivan, because this is definitely the industry that you work within. So
yeah, I think lots of people saw kind of similar to Travis Scott's concepts, like when hundreds and thousands of people just going together and staying together, having fun, enjoying. So kind of, I just clearly see that the numbers of social platforms are growing. So, and kind of, I can definitely say that you can do everything you have in real life. You can try to copy it in virtual reality, plus some like unbelievable crazy physics or changing geometry of the space. So it's kind of I really think that it's good for VR to be open-minded and kind of don't scared to be crazy. As examples I shared with you, remember about the gestures, hand gestures and stuff like this.
But when you're developing some VR training tools before you came to Strelka, right? Or these type of experiments?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of before it goes to publicly. The VR, of course, was a part of the like an army tool, and then it was kind of a post-traumatic syndrome for people who backed from war. So it's kind of it was really useful for a big part before it becomes social. I mean, it starts when Facebook acquire Oculus. So do you want to yeah?
Can I also
sure
speak about this question? Just this simple thought which I had about this question. As far as I remember, it's about the usage of in the ways of how to help people's lives. Yeah, am I right? It is where the question started.
Yeah.
Okay. The basics is that I know that, for example, in Volkswagen they use the VR sets to teach people how to build those machines, how to use it, and just an idea, the simplest. Do you know how to save a person's life in the case of the first emergency? As for me, I don't. We had a lesson in school, and I'm sure everyone had, but nobody remembers anything from it. It could be very useful, for example, for the schools to teach children in their kind of entertainment way the different options of people's cases, like maybe a car accident or when the person fall from somewhere, or when he's burned. And if you have those tools just to find it and to heal him, I think it's maybe the easiest basics, but still the simple idea could bring the experience for lots of people who may once make the first emergency help for somebody. It's just an idea to share. Maybe someone who's watching us can bring it to life, or maybe it's kind of thought.
Okay. Yeah, so I will quickly answer two short questions, and then we'll go to avatars topic, because it's I think it will be interesting to speak about it. So two short one. Would you consider in the future having audience participation if you do another one of this? Of course, yes. I mean, it's like I will be so happy if some of the people can join us in virtual reality. I just know that it's not so lots of people have VR glasses, but of course in the future we'll open up the access to our VR stage, and yeah, you're always welcome. So another question, where can I read some research and impact on VR and self-perception? I can recommend do your basic research on on the web, but I can recommend one podcast called Voices of VR. So this guy, Kent Bai, has an amazing a intersection of philosophy and virtual reality, and he's doing a lots of interview with the most important people from VR industry. And I think if you'll follow and at least go through maybe 10 or 15 of his interview, you'll get really deep inside what's going on from not a high perception of virtual reality. So as I promised, the question about avatars. So different graphical representation of the user, that's what avatar is. Do you think that the virtual reality such avatars are perceived as another manifestation of yourself? that is you are the same as always, but just in a new space, or it is more like an alter ego, like another person with a different life? We talk about a little bit like in VR. So, but do you want to open up this topic of how do you feel when you have a different body in VR, and what it means for you? Do you want to speak about it?
Sure. I guess it's an opportunity to elaborate on how the architecture of the platform in itself actually defines a new persona. And I think a good example, which is not in virtual reality, but we all become somebody else when we play sports, for example. And I played a lot of basketball when I was young, and you could tell that by bringing some people who never played before, they would become truly another self. And it would be such a good way of like knowing someone really deeply, is just to bring them into this kind of like defined game and with defined rules. And I mean, we do that with cards, we do that with any sort of games. And I think virtual reality is just another form of like showing some aspect of your real persona.
Yeah, it's a kind of actually it's a good question, because I can see that the people kind of split on two parts. Someone feels it's like it's not me. It's kind of a completely new identity, but kind of opposite to what you're saying, Thomas. And Anton, what do you think?
For me, it's a very deep question. I don't know how to answer it properly, but I'll try.
Sorry. Do you remember when we was with another guy, Dennis, and he was ashamed because he's fat?
Yeah, I remember this stuff. And
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, it is. As for me, as I think, people are really separated, not into two parts, but into two moods. The first mood is just when you want to self-consciously experience something for yourself, as if it's for yourself, and you create the avatars which are most which looks like you. For example, as for me, in any game where there is an option to create the avatar, I always create the copy of myself, because I know I am handsome. Look at me. I'm handsome, and I know this, and of course I'm kidding, but still I'm creating these avatars just to feel as if I am there. But in some other moods, for example, in the moods of VR experience, I can also try to be someone else, and it changed a lot. For example, the platform which is called I don't remember, VR Chat, I think, which gives you a huge assortment of opportunities of whom can you be, the small cat or the huge bodybuilder. When you choose this avatar, people start to act with you in a different way, and it is kind of surprising. It is kind of the game itself. And I would not say that maybe I don't have much experience in that, but as for me, I think it's just about whom you want to be. You want to play or you want to experience. It is just two different parts, two different ways of consumption of entertainment.
Yeah, okay. Wow, thank you. Another question we have, I will try to answer shortly on it. And what about AR as a bridge to VR and reality? Equipment like Google Glass, not big headset, is a key. Then we can fast forward or step walk into digital matrix. What do you think? So it's kind of, you can call it as an umbrella term as a spatial computing. So augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality could be explained altogether as a spatial computing. So the fact that information should be somewhere in a space. So you could be surrounded with a virtual reality, or it could be kind of augmented reality with overlaid physical space, overlaid with information, but it will happen. So yes, you can count AR as a bridge to VR, but if you're asking about the Google Glass, is a really old project, it's better follow what's going on Apple, because like in 2 years they will release the kind of it's possible that it will be a new media, it will be a new big gadget, like a new iPhone, let's say. That's what they call it, and they call it right now Project N301, I think. And you can read a big article on Bloomberg on the possibility of what's the future of what's the future way of connection of person and information. I have a kind of more comments, but maybe we can speak about it. I totally agree with the idea of making huge advertising of VR. The time has come for a new step in the VR world, but also why not just make it viral? It's kind of a play of words, viral. But let's say the guy who bring a new feeling of VR, the Palmer Luckey, like a new wave of VR. His famous quote was like, even if VR glasses will be for free, not everyone will take it at home. So I'm not sure that the VR will be like everywhere, but maybe there are a possibility for VR become viral. So Anton, do you want to maybe guess what it could be? I mean, you start to speak about it by referring to Apple and Sony PlayStation, those kind of mainstream.
The thought is very simple. The question is, maybe let's make it viral. Okay, let's make it viral. Okay, I go make it viral. It doesn't work like this. It works in the different ways. You have to make the kick, the first jump into the communication, and this the main thing of this first jump and the whole communication in a row is the idea of what it is for people. It is, I mean, everybody knows the Apple history. It has the message in the name, personal computer. For us, it is just like, oh, okay, yeah, personal computer, I know. But the thing is that it is not VR. It was computer, and then it became personal computer. The same is about VR. It costs, I'm sure, less than the first personal computer costed to people. I'm sure it's cheaper. It is very easy access. It's very easy to enter this VR world, and the only thing to do is to create the huge, aggressive marketing on it, just to advertise it and advertise it and advertise it. People can buy shit like spinners. People, as I told, bought huge stereo systems for no reason. Even I have. You see this. It is just the case of the matter of my childhood. My parents had this stereo systems. For what? What for? I don't even have headsets. I don't listen to music, but still I have it because it's cool. So the thing is to make VR headsets appear in every, maybe not in every, but to make them common for people. It is already common. You don't need any wires or stuff. You don't need to buy a computer. It is very easy. Everything is ready. You just have to start advertising it, like PlayStation did, like Apple did, like every bystander jumped into the market. It is just the question of marketing. Several $1 million and problem solved. I don't know how to explain it in a different way. It is marketing need to do this. VR need to do this because it's cool.
Okay, I'm happy that you kind of touching VR a bit. I mean, maybe like step by step we'll do that. I have a question about the kind of experience of cinema. Like maybe
if someone want to answer this. So, what can cinema be like in VR, both future films and 3D cartoons, for example? It's it's already exists. So, is anyone want to start, or I can start?
I have an opinion about this. I thought about it. I love cinema and I love VR, and I create those commercials, which are also the cinemas. Films. I mean, in that case, it is very. It is a huge and super interesting challenge about how to catch the human's attention in the 360. You can.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is. If I would have the task like this to create a movie in VR, it would be not about the. It would totally differ from the stuff I would create as a movie itself. It would, I don't know, the way I would know. I don't know. Hire the attention expert, like what catches your attention, what makes you move your head this direction or other direction. But this is what makes it could be the perfect movie. And as far as I know, one of the greatest directors of nowadays has created those kind of movie, and but still nobody has seen it. I can't wait to get in the.
Yeah, I just want to add that our audience should understand that kind of the biggest movie festivals already and movie they already have a VR part in so. It's already exists, and Venice Biennale had already like an entire island just with a VR project. So it's kind of it's here, and you can just check. And actually, in a few weeks there will be a Cannes VR, a huge festival. So you can just rent for one day VR glasses, and you can enter the whole world of VR movies and the 360 content. Thomas,
please just buy it. Please just buy it. Don't
okay, yeah, maybe you just buy it. Thomas, do you want to share some maybe your favorite feedback from your project when you capturing like it was like 8K or 11K movie?
Yeah, it was a 8K stereoscopic 360 video.
Crazy.
And I think the feedback I got a lot is that it was kind of like a video essay. Using real footage and CGI, and with a voiceover, and it was like 10 minutes long. And I think one of the feedback I got the most was that it can be overwhelming if it's the first time that you use it, because you're so amazed about like being able to move your head around and then just your attention get grasped by any kind of thing. So then the voiceover is becoming really in the background of the narrative. And so it's like this is what I mentioned when we were in VR about that we need to spread VR to the extent that it becomes so mainstream that people can start consuming its content for its narrative qualities instead of just the amazement of the magical aspect of it. And but I think also going back to what you were saying, Anton, maybe it's not about consuming VR film in the same way that you would consume like two-dimensional movies, in the way that you need to grasp people's attention in a really specific way and manner. Maybe VR films are meant to be watched and rewatched several times, because then you have this capacity of like seeing it from a complete different perspective. I watched recently for the first time, that's my cult, but David Lynch, Mulholland Drive, and it's a bit like that. It's like you have so much information that you want to rewatch it to, assert that your hypothesis about the plot is true, because you left something aside and you want to rewatch it. And maybe there's something similar to the construction and consumption of VR films.
Mm-hmm.
That is, by the way, that is a very interesting way of creating those kind of films. I haven't thought about it like the whole idea to rewatch the stuff which you cannot watch at the same time. It could even bring us to the films without the answer on the main question, for people to find it after 2 or 3 rewatches to guess who killed Laura Palmer after finding answers in a different way. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I just want to get one advice for for a person who maybe want to enter into this area of like VR movies. I think the best way is to use a multidisciplinary team, because if, for example, you have a person who can work who can work in theater, or who can make a setup on stage, plus one architect, plus one classic director of the movies, it will be the best team. So because VR had a completely different logics of understanding of the space, that's what we are talking about here. So it's like it will not work if you know the same tools. If you know the tools how to make it a classic movie, it will not work in VR. So this is a point. And we can slightly go to our last question, and it's kind of really it's just a perfect last question, I think. One of you is interested in how to get into the VR creation industry. So it could be just a kind of a motivation words from you, or direct advice of what to get and what to buy, or just how you get there. So yeah, how to get into VR creation industry. Who wants to start?
I have thoughts about it. The thing is that, okay, small background. We were with Ivan in the bar, and he had a headset, this kind of headset. I asked, what is it? Ivan said, this is headset. You can use it right here. I said, right here? He said, yes. I used it. After 2 days, I bought it. After 2 days after it, I understood that it is kind of like, maybe you remember the times of Pentium 1 or Pentium 2, or hacking the programs, or like experimenting with files names, like from childhood, like on computing. The thing is that VR is the wild west. Without the proper answers, without the right answers, without the right applications, it can still have some bugs during the experience, and it makes it the perfect instrument to start anything. Like anything you start there is just like come on, you are an expert now. You can call yourself the expert of VR painting, the expert of VR sketching, because it is just the start. We're using the newborn child of industry. Nobody knows how to use it properly, and it is the main cool thing about it.
Exactly. It's like, for example, the operator, the guy who is like a cameraman inside the virtual reality. So it's kind of I'm the first one. It's like now you get a new skills, and you get a new profession. And Thomas, do you want to say a few words to our one of your viewer, kind of how to enter VR creation industry?
To enter like professionally the creative industry of VR, or because I don't know about that. I guess for me it was more like how to get into VR for your own use. I guess, I mean, if you try a VR headset for the first time, you'll never come back. I mean, it's just like so amazing. I mean, specifically since the Quest exists, it's so plug and play. You don't need to set up any sensors, and now they're even like making it usable with hand gestures, so you don't need to get like to know really well the controllers either. So I mean, I made my I made my grandparents, use it, and they were amazed. And it's like it's really accessible to anyone, really. I think then the other layer is like how to start creating for it. And I think now any form of like post-production, filming, editing softwares, they're able to handle 360 footage. So it's like really easy to edit. I think the easiest way to create content for VR is actually just to get a 360 camera and then start shooting whatever content you wish. And then if you want to bring CGI into play, then starting maybe with Unity or Cinema 4D or Blender. And then, if you want to make a video game, which is like more interactive, then Unity for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of, I totally agree. It's kind of, as we said a few times already, to start to entering the VR, just need I can recommend, for example, the Oculus Quest is not really expensive. It's just about $400 and you're inside of VR, and then you need to spend like $20 on a application, and you already can start drawing in virtual reality. But if you want to like go to a professional level, of course you probably need a 360 camera or game engine like Unity or Unreal, or a kind of, you can start from this.
Yeah, and also it is very easy to start just with the porn.
Yeah, why not? Actually, it's like you can find our contacts on Strelka channels, and you can text me at least for sure. I can help you to kind of answer any other questions. And let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for the time you spent with us, and thank you so much for watching us. We'll keep the entire discussion and the VR part and this Q&A, we'll keep it on the Strelka channels in Contacti, Facebook, and YouTube. So stay tuned, and maybe see you in the next VR session. Bye-bye.
Bye.